In honor of National Principals Month, Miss Hewitt, this is for you.
Hi, ladies. Hi. We gotta stay ready. Let's go. Come on. No tag. Okay, pull right on up there. Pull. They have no tag. Claudia and Wendy, they have no tag. Okay, let's go. Hi, how you doing? Come on, baby. Your ride's right here. Let's go. Get on in there. Hi, Mom. Yes. Well, next week we're gonna have open house, so we want to make sure all the parents is there. And Friday is early release. All right, have a good one. Let's go. All right. We gotta stay ready. You okay? You had a good day? Hi, Miss
Hello. How you doing? Okay, have a seat. Hi.
Okay, so the prep ride we had at the beginning, at the beginning of school, it was boring. We need to do more.
What do you mean boring?
Like the kids wasn't interested.
Okay, we can't always have fun.
I know, but it's school. And
Okay, so what would you suggest?
well, I think that maybe we should have got like some beads to throw to the kids. Like we should have a little dance competition. The teacher should have been up there dancing because the kids.
I'm just processing. I'm processing right now. Okay.
Well, you looking at me like you don't agree with me.
But I just want to know, what does that look like?
Okay.
What does it look like? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand.
Because everything can be fun.
Okay.
Okay, so what does it look like?
The kid having fun. Like, we just need to do more stuff.
Okay, you had something written up for me? Or?
Yeah. So some of my ideas that I put together
Okay.
on your head.
Okay.
So those were just some of my ideas that I kind of put together that I kind of needed your approval for. I know y'all was like, join the club.
Okay, what is this? This right here. What does that say?
So that's the day that I was thinking that we could do it.
Okay. Okay, well I'll write that down and come back to it later. And we'll talk about it. I'll talk to Miss Burrows. And we can have a little meeting and we'll come up with something, okay? Well, so right here, Miss Reese, more fun. Exclamation. There you go. Got it right there. Okay?
Good luck.
All right.
Thank you. Have a nice one.
Yes. Always a pleasure. Always.
All right, so I'm here with Mrs. Aguilar. Mrs. Aguilar, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Well, I love that Miss Hewitt is willing and able to share her ideas and communicate with everybody very well and efficiently, so that way her ideas can come to fruition.
Okay. Now, Ms. Aguilar, what's one thing that Ms. Hewitt says that has stuck with you throughout the time you've worked with her?
So, as administrators, we are always having to deal with so many different things, but we always have to focus to the alligator closest to the boat.
You got it. So, I'm here with Mrs. Cunningham. Ms. Cunningham, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
So one thing that I admire about Miss Hewitt is that she's able to see the big picture. She can see everything that needs to be done in order to reach her goals.
All right. Now, Ms. Cunningham, what's one thing that Ms. Hewitt says, or one of her sayings that has stuck with you throughout this time you've worked with her?
So there are many, but I think I will choose lock and step.
Yes, you got it.
Something I admire about my principal, Mrs. Hewitt, is that she is very caring about her staff and students and is always there when we need her, always making sure our needs are met. She's always very involved in anything that is needed in our school. She's truly a great leader, and I wish her nothing but the best. You see how this was just birthed here?
So, I'm here with Ms. Jones. Ms. Jones, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Her confidence, for sure. That's something I think we can all look up to. She walks into everything she does full confidence.
All right. Now, Ms. Jones, what's a saying that Ms. Hewitt says that has stuck with you throughout the time you've worked with her?
We all know, we've all heard her say, get ready, stay ready. You never have to get ready if you stay ready. But one thing that sticks out to me that's always funny is anytime there's a new idea, something was birthed.
Yes. So I'm here with Stella. Stella, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Her cooking ability, chicken and waffles.
All right. Now, Stella, what's one thing Miss Hewitt says that has stuck with you throughout this time?
That's not the alligator closest to the boat.
You got it. So I'm here with Miss Rodriguez. Miss Rodriguez, what's one thing that you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire her passion. She's a very dedicated principal. She's always looking out for what's best for her staff, and she does an excellent job, keeping us motivated, trying to keep us engaged, and giving us our best foot forward. So I do appreciate that she shows her appreciation towards us as often as she can.
All right. And now, what's one saying that Miss Hewitt has, or that Miss Hewitt says, that has stuck with you throughout this time?
You don't have to get ready when you stay ready.
That's it. Thank you. So, I'm here with Miss Louie. Miss Louie, what is one thing that you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
So, Mrs. Hewitt is always like, even if she has a lot on her plate, you can still see a smile on her face, and she would always ask you, how are you doing? How are you doing? Even if I feel like she's so busy and thinking so many things, she always checks on us.
Okay. Now, what's one saying Miss Hewitt always says that you remember throughout the years you've worked with her?
She always say that you don't have to get ready if you always stay ready.
That's right.
Always.
All right. Okay, so I'm here with Miss Robinson. Miss Robinson, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire her always ensuring that her staff is ready.
Okay. And then Ms. Robinson, what's one thing Miss Hewitt says that has stuck with you?
Stay ready.
You got it. I am here with Mrs. Nieves. Ms. Nieves, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
She's always super ready and energetic every day.
All right. Now, what's one thing Miss Hewitt says that's just stuck with you and that lives in your head?
Stay ready.
You got it. I'm here with Guardian Wendy. Guardian Wendy, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Oh my goodness, her spirit.
Okay.
I love it.
All right.
She's so outgoing and she's so happy every day. It could be a gloomy day and she's
still that's right. All right. Now, what's one thing Miss Hewitt says that has stuck with you throughout the time you've worked with her?
When we doing teamwork, what was the one that she says? Teamwork
makes the dream work. Yeah, love it. All right.
Love it. Every time we're doing teamwork, she's always saying that.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes.
All right, got it. I'm here with our media specialist, Dr. Owens. Dr. Owens, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
It's a shame that you're asking me only one thing that I admire about Mrs. Hewitt. But if I had to think of one thing, it is she says what she means and she means what she says.
You got it. Now, Dr. Owens, what's one thing Miss Hewitt says or have said that has stuck with you throughout this time you've worked with her?
Oh man, out of the 50,000 things? Okay, listen.
Just one.
She said something. Okay, so I'm going to say, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
You got it. I'm here with Miss Ville. Miss Ville, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
One thing that I admire about Miss Hewitt is her work ethic and how she continues to pour into her staff and students.
Now, Miss Ville, what's one thing Miss Hewitt has said or that she says that has stuck with you throughout the time you've worked with her?
When you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
You got it. So I'm here with Miss Stacy. Miss Stacy, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire her professionalism.
Okay. All right. And now, Miss Stacy, what's one thing Miss Hewitt says or that she has said that has stuck with you throughout the time you worked with her?
She always tells me, you don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
You got it. All right. So I'm here with Miss Warren. Miss Warren, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire the way that she is able to turn a negative situation into a positive situation. When a parent comes to her and says something negative, she turns it around and she makes it a positive. So that's one of the things I admire.
Okay, now Ms. Warren, what's one thing Ms. Hewitt say or have said that has stuck with you throughout the time you worked with her?
My kids can't stand it because I always say, if you stay ready, you don't have to
get ready. You got it. So I'm here with Miss Spencer. Miss Spencer, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I really admire that Miss Hewitt is always there to support us. Whenever we have an issue with a child or a parent, we can go to her and she is right there. She's got our back. She doesn't leave us hanging, and she's very supportive and understanding.
Okay, now what's one thing Miss Hewitt say or has said that has stuck with you throughout the time you work with her?
Well, as you know, she says a lot of very fun things like you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. But one thing that always sticks out to me, because I have the smaller children, is when she calls her kids her Bethune babies.
Yes.
She's always like, I gotta get my Bethune babies ready, or we got Bethune baby birthday. I love that she has this caring culture with the kids, and it always just stands out how she treats our kids more like family.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm here with Mrs. Brown. Mrs. Brown, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
What I love about Miss Hewitt is the way she dressed. She's always dressed from head to toe. Everything has to be in place until it starts raining. Then she go get one of them Walmart bags to put on her head. But other than that, I do love the way she dressed.
Okay, now what's one thing Miss Hewitt has says or that she say that has stuck with you throughout the time you've worked with her?
Our new actor, one of our new attributes where she always says, I own it, you own it, we own it.
All right, thank you. Miss Bell, what's one thing that you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
The one thing I admire about Ms. Hewitt is that she gives us opportunities to be successful. She gives you opportunities to make mistakes and help correct you on. So she's the opportunity giver.
Okay, all right. Now, what's one thing Miss Hewitt says or has said that has stuck with you throughout the time you've worked with her?
You don't have to get ready when you stay ready.
That's it. I'm here with Miss Halleck. Mrs. Halleck, what's something you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Okay, so there's two things that I admire about Miss Hewitt, okay? One is her amazing positive energy, and two, her waffles.
Oh, yes! All right, thank you. All right, I'm here with Miss Stevenson. Miss Stevenson, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Okay, what I admire about Miss Hewitt, she is always positive, okay?
All right, and then now, Ms. Stevenson, what's one thing Ms. Hewitt says or have said that has stuck with you throughout the time you've worked with her?
Okay, one of my favorite things is, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
That's right, thank you. All right, so I'm here with Mrs. McCord. Mrs. McCord, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
One thing I admire about Mrs. Hewitt is her personality. It's always bubbly, and she's approachable, and you can go to her for anything.
Okay, now what's one thing Ms. Hewitt say or have said that has stuck with you throughout this time you've worked with her?
You don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
You got it, thank you. Hi, so I'm here with Mrs. Floyd. Mrs. Floyd, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I really admire that when she is present, she commands the room. Presence is known. She's very strong, and that's definitely something that I look up to as a leader.
All right. Now, what's one thing Miss Hewitt say or says that has stuck with you throughout the time you worked with her?
I just love how she calls us her Bethune family.
Yeah.
Bethune family, and that really sticks with me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm here with Nurse Jasmine. Nurse Jasmine, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Her style. Can be touched.
Yes. Okay, now, what's something Ms. Hewitt say or has said that has stuck with you throughout the time you worked with her?
When they go low, we go high.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so I'm here with Mrs. King. Mrs. King, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire about Mrs. Hewitt is that she has dedication to the students, and not just their well-being as students in the educational sense, but their well-being as a rounded person, how it affects the family and what goes on in their family.
All right. Now, what's something Ms. Hewitt says or has said that has stuck with you since you've been working with her?
We don't have to get ready because we stay ready.
That's right. Thank you.
That is what I've been taught. Look, my mom said that all my life.
What?
So I already know.
You already knew. Stay ready.
Yeah. All right.
Hi, I'm here with Mrs. Lance. Mrs. Lance, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire how put together and classy she is every day, and how she just always seems so cool and collected. I respect that so much about her.
All right. Now, Ms. Lance, what's one thing or something that Ms. Hewitt say or have said that has stuck with you within this time you've worked with her?
It has to be our
our actual slogan. I own it, you own it, we own it, because she owns it, and she reminds me that she owns it and that we all own it, and I love it, and that's really going to stick with me for the rest of my life.
All right, thank you. All right, so I'm here with Mrs. Rosado. Mrs. Rosado, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Well, she cares a lot about her staff, her school, and her students, and I really appreciate that.
Okay, all right. Now, what's something Ms. Hewitt say or has said that has stuck with you since you've been working with her?
I own it, you own it,
We own it. All right. Hi, I'm here with Mrs. Diaz. Mrs. Diaz, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
One thing I admire about Mrs. Hewitt is just the ownership of the school. She owns it, and it's part of like our motto here is I own it, you own it, we own it. And she shows that through and through with how she talks. When she says it's a us thing, it's not just like, oh, that's Miss Diaz's class. No, this is our first grade class, so I love that about her.
All right. Now, what's one thing Ms. Hewitt say or has said that has stuck with you since you've been here?
One thing that has stuck with me that I love is the motto that she says all the time. She says, I own it, you own it, we own it. And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so I am here with Mrs. Estadillo, and Mrs. Estadillo, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Well, I admire Mrs. Hewitt because she is firm. She has this positive aura that gets everyone into do things.
Yes, okay. All right, so now what's one thing Miss Hewitt say or have said since you've been working with her that has stuck with you?
We don't get ready if we stay ready.
That's right. All right, so I'm here with Miss Valentine. Miss Valentine, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
One thing, well, a lot of things, but one of the things is that she's always positive. She always has something to say that keep you,
Going.
keep you going.
All right. Okay, so now what's something Miss Hewitt has said or that she says that has stuck with you throughout the time you've been working here?
I would say you own it, we own it, and
I own it.
I own it.
You own it. We own it. You got it. All right.
So I'm here with Ms. Garcia. Ms. Garcia, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I love how she has a vision, how she can see something small or something that may not see itself there and be like, yes, this is where it's gonna be flourishing. And I see that with myself because I was leaving the job fair when she called me out and invited me in and made me feel so welcome. So I'm so grateful for her vision.
All right. Now, what's something Ms. Hewitt has said or that she say that has stuck with you since you've been working here?
You don't have to get ready as long as you stay ready.
That's right. All right. All right. So I'm here with Miss Keisha. Miss Keisha, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire her hard work, dedication, and her support. She always behind me 100%.
All right. Now, what's something Ms. Hewitt say or has said that has stuck with you since you've been working for her?
You don't have to get ready if you stay ready.
That's right. Mr. Beasley, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Her is so happy every day.
Every day. That's right.
Right.
Thank you. All right. So I'm here with Ms. Murtaugh. Ms. Murtaugh, what's one thing that you admire about Ms. Hewitt?
One thing I admire about Miss Hewitt is her perseverance. We've had ups and downs in this school. We have difficulties, low staff, everything, but somehow she always manages to come out on top with a smile on her face.
All right. So now what's one thing she say or has said that has stuck with you since you've been working for her?
We all know this. You don't gotta get ready if you stay
That's
ready.
right. All right. So I'm here with Mrs. Bland. Mrs. Bland, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
That she's always interacting within the campus. She's always encouraging everyone to participate. She's always there for early dismissal. She's there for arrivals. She's there for dismissal.
Okay.
That's what I like about her.
All right. Thank you. All right. So I'm here with Ms. Jackson. Ms. Jackson, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
Well, I like her confidence, her style. I like how focused she is when she's very energetic.
Okay.
And I just like how she when she wants something done, she gonna
Get
get
it done. All right, thank you. All right, so I'm here with Coach. Coach, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire her consistency. She's a very reliable person.
Okay.
And I like to stay ready so I don't have to get ready.
That's right. Thank you, Coach. All right, so I'm here with Ms. Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, what's one thing you admire about Mrs. Hewitt?
I admire her because she took over our school that's been established a long time ago and made it new, and especially with the new Cambridge program.
Okay.
So, yes.
All right. So now what's something she say or has said that has stuck with you since you've been working here?
To be ready.
Yes. All right. Thank you.